Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you wherever and whenever you are joining us. Welcome to our latest edition of What Caught My Eye, or WCME Sports. I am, as always, your host, the coach Nick Vesci, joined by the boy Stephen Vesci.
What up?
And the man Stephen Comlo, who
Hello.
was our reporter in the field this week, along with our parents, but we'll get to that here in a second. Before we get to that, just a couple reminders for you. Follow us on our socials on Instagram and X at WCME_sports. Visit us on our website at WCMEsports.com. Our episodes drop every Wednesday at noon on Spotify and on YouTube. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. Reach out to us with anything that you thought caught your eye through Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is. Reach out to us. We do like to get suggestions because as much as we do cover in this show, because we do cover a lot, there's always something we missed, right? There's got to be something out there that caught someone else's eye, and we want to kind of bring as much as we can to the table for our loyal, thankful viewers and listeners that we have out there, especially those in Central America. We didn't forget about you. But our top catch this week is the Solheim Cup. If you don't know what the Solheim Cup is, it is the women's equivalent to the Ryder Cup in golf. It's only been around for a little over 30 years. I think 1990 was the first year that they did this. It's played every 2 years, just like the Ryder Cup, and it's on the year that the Ryder Cup's not played. Now, last year, it was played in the same year because of COVID. So we got that rare treat last year. Now we're back on schedule. So the Solheim Cup just wrapped up on Sunday. The next one we won't see till 2026. But if you missed it, it was pretty awesome. Not just because it was a USA victory, but because any match play international type of tournament is awesome. It comes with a little more cachet, a little more intrigue, a little more bravado.
Cachet, good word.
Yeah, I think it catches your eye more because, one, it's different from what you're used to seeing on a normal golf course. And two, there's just a little different type of energy. Like it's kind of more like going to like that Tony. Backwards. Yep, I thought I'd go. Hey, Tony. A little more like going to like a team sporting event, because it is a team event. Even though you're watching individuals play against each other, you have a whole team atmosphere. So it's a lot different. But just to recap, the USA defeated Europe 15.5 to 12.5. at Robert Trent Jones Golf Club in Gainesville, Virginia. That's a venue that has hosted several other President's Cups, which is the men's version of the U.S. versus the rest of the world besides Europe, which I think they're playing that this year. Not at this golf course, but that's happening this year as well. The last year in Spain, Europe retained the cup. They didn't win it. They retained the cup in a 14-14 tie. They had won the previous Solheim Cup. So if you don't beat the other team and you tie them, they get to keep it, even though they technically didn't win it. You tied. The U.S. had not won a Solheim Cup in 7 years, since 2017 in Iowa. Lilia Vu sunk the clinching putt on Sunday on the 18th hole to tie her match to gain that crucial half a point to put the United States over the edge and make it insurmountable for Team Europe. The United States is now 11-7-1 all-time in the Solheim Cup, which is a pretty good record. A couple standout performances for the United States. Rose Zhang, she went 4-0, and she became the first golfer to go 4-0 at the Solheim Cup and never even make it to the 17th hole, because that's how much she was beating her opponents in all of her matches. That nuts. She never played the last 2 holes the whole weekend because she beat her opponents that badly. She won 28 holes, lost only 8 the entire event, which is pretty remarkable. That's like a dominant. That's someone who gets it, because there are a lot of people, men and women, who struggle at this format because it's so drastically different from what they're used to in stroke play. And like Tiger really has never been that great at this. As great as he's probably the greatest golfer ever, he struggled sometimes in Ryder Cups and President's Cups, and same with Phil. They're 2 of the greatest golfers ever. But certain guys step up. Certain guys have that kind of, guys and women have that little different edge that they can tap into that allow them to compete, almost take their game to a next level and mentally handle it. And Rose Zhang clearly is one of them. Another one is our girl Lauren Coughlin from UVA. She went 3-0-1. She tied her final singles match on Sunday in her Solheim Cup debut. Megan Kang also went unbeaten. She went 3-0 for the U.S. I believe the top performer for the Europe side
She
was
went
Charlie.
4-0.
Megan Kang did. You sure?
Positive.
Okay, I had seen 3-0, but 4-0. I mean, even better. The top performer for the European side was Charlie Hull. I believe she went 3-2, including a pretty good beatdown of world number one Nelly Korda in the singles on Sunday, which is pretty impressive. But at this time, I do want to turn the floor over to our esteemed colleague, our reporter in the field this week, if you will, the man Stephen Comlo. Comlo, what? Just lay it out for us. What did you see? How was the experience? And what are some things that happened to you during this event?
Don't make me do it. The event I thought was really, really for a Sunday. It was wonderfully handled. They Solheim Cup. I'm sure everybody saw the headlines. They got off to a rough start early on in terms of transportation. Where, I think it was Friday where there were reports that like the grandstands were more than half empty. The line for the shuttle buses was more than half a mile long. So we being me and my brother. I took my brother with me. It was his first golf event ever, so he had a blast. But we were a little nervous about it, but we got there. Absolutely no issues getting to the satellite lot, getting on the bus, getting there, and right when you get there, the pop-up tent of merch was there, and it was immaculate. The stuff that they had in there, and like they didn't gouge on prices. As you can see, I got my Malbon golf hat, my Malbon golf shirt. But it was, I mean, just top to bottom, I thought it was really, really well put together. RTJ is just a wonderful, wonderful course. I mean, the views that you get over Lake Manassas, just breathtaking. I mean, it's right here in our backyard. So if anybody ever gets the chance to go get their ass kicked on RTJ, take it. It's a beautiful, beautiful track. But right out of the gate, so we got to see some range time, got to see some practice putting time. Saw Nelly on the range before she teed off, and we made our way over to the first hole. And I tried to pick a spot that was kind of in like the landing area where their tee shots would land. And
Was that to try to get hit so you could get a signed ball?
Well, no, but that would have been super clutch.
That's the golf equivalent to the Charlie one too. Let's be real.
So the first hole, I mean, we're sitting there and we can see Nelly come out of the tunnel into like the Coliseum style grandstands onto the tee box, and she's jumping up and down, amping the crowd up. It's like reminiscent of like Justin Thomas at Ryder Cup, right? Like the energy that she brought to that first tee, and that place exploded when she came out of the tunnel, dude. Almost like everyone was surprised. They didn't know she was teeing off first or something. But so that was pretty cool. And then the first really big highlight for me happened right away. Charlie Hull tees off, smacks her ball dead center of the fairway. And then Nelly tees off. And she probably outdrove Charlie by about 30 yards, but she hooked it. She hooked it. And
did it land on your foot?
It ended up about 30 yards ahead of us, but on the wrong side of the fringe. And she has there's a TV camera crane like 20 yards ahead of her between her and the green. There's a lot of trees with like low hanging branches and limbs. And of course, immediately the crowd horseshoes around her ball. And I was there because why wouldn't I be? And so, I mean, like, from me to her, 20 feet, I was one of those lunatics that was in front of the firing line.
You're one of those people who just hate life in general. You just prefer to get hit in the head with a projectile.
I mean, like, you guys know, I've talked a lot of like trash about people who've done that, and I just couldn't help it. I was thinking content first, content for the show. I got a video of it, but so we horseshoe around.
A video of the ball hitting someone, or
no,
clearing you?
Of like Nelly walking up, addressing her ball, looking at it, and our buddy who was with us, Patty, he looked at me and was like, he looked at me, looked at the ball, and looked like towards the pin, and he was like, "She can't go for this, right?" And I was like, "They're gonna move that TV crane." And sure enough, Nick, it was the same things we saw at Live. They lowered the crane and they drove it forward about 20 feet. And I was like, dude, the window here is so small. I told Patty, I was like, but it's the first hole. It's all tied up. Like, set the tone early, right? And
Announce your presence with authority.
she flights this ball down, gets it to bounce like 1 or 2 times in the fairway, and it knocks on. And she ends up tying that hole. But I got a great video and a lot of really good pictures of Nelly right there. That was cool. Then we linked up with your parents on the second hole, and we sat there for a little while. We saw Nelly and Charlie come through. We were right there it was a front right pin location, and we were right there on the front right. It's just that we were below the green. So like your dad was like turning his phone on and holding it all the way up and was like, I was like, everybody tune into the Jumbotron.
Hey, he's a veteran. That's how he got those
Yeah.
tickets. He's allowed to do so, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, innovative, right? Thinking outside the box. But we sat there and we watched Nelly and Charlie play through there. Megan Kang and Emily Pedersen played through there, and then Allison Lee and Georgia Hall played through there. And then we started walking. And then we went to the par 5 third, which was where we were standing. We had the par 5 third, like where it kind of dog legs up to the right. And then we had the par 3 fourth behind us. So it was like action here, turn around to see the action there. We saw Allison Corpuz there. That was awesome. She got pretty close to us. She hit a perfect shot right where you would want to be. And then my brother actually almost got hit by Carlota Seganda's errant tee shot. And I had walked away because I had to go to the bathroom bad. And when I started coming back, I was like,
You got the oopsie poopsies?
No. Just had to, a little number one. I don't
Bleed the
know.
lizard.
There's no cool. That's the coolest way to say it, I guess.
Wisingham Manor.
Yeah, I had to go to Wisingham Manor. So I'm walking back and I'm like looking. I'm like, this is where we were, but this looks different. And sure enough, like I see Kevin's head pop up, and he's in a tie-dye like Grateful Dead with like but it had like the skeleton on the Grateful Dead t-shirt was playing golf. So I mean, it was apropos. And he's like, and then sure enough, like Carlota hits, and I was like, dude, what the heck? He's like, the ball landed like 5 feet from me, and I didn't move, and I just kind of stood here. And then he was like, and they were talking Spanish, so I had no idea what they were saying. But so that was pretty cool. And then, but I mean, like, I could break down like every shot I saw, but it was an incredible experience, dude. It was my first LPGA event, and this was the first year that I'd really like thrown myself at the LPGA. With our podcast, obviously, Mimosa Minute, LPGA was always a good go-to for me for Mimosa Minute stuff. And it was so cool to see all these ladies in person. And I can't like, I've been trying to find like a likeness to this event to compare it to for people. Cause like we like to use metaphor and simile so people understand what we're talking about. And the best thing I could compare this to is like a regular season hockey game. And I don't think that's an exaggeration at all. Like if you were in the right place at the right time, the energy was so electric. And on 18, watching Lilia Vu clinch up on 18 and coming into the hole down 1 and needing to win the hole to force a tie and take the whole thing. I mean, just everybody there. It was electric. It got me excited. I can't tell you how many times I high-fived your dad and said, "I'm going crazy right now." Like, and not even that, but also like the sense of pride you feel, like like you said, Nick, it's an international event. It's an event where we're watching not just these individual golfers and these singles matches, but we're watching like people represent their country, and so close after the Olympics and all this other stuff that's been going on lately. I mean, this was just so cool. I would 100% travel to go to this event again. it sold me. It sold me
So,
on this.
speaking of representing our country well, I understand that on a certain hole, there was a possible altercation that could have taken place,
This is what we're
which would have been very representative of our typical American spectator group. Can you walk us through that particular scenario? What hole were you on? Who were you watching? If you even remember what happened.
I want to say we were. It had to have been like we were on the 14th hole because I believe we had just seen Megan. No, was it Megan Kang? I think we saw Megan Kang clinch up on 14. Or no, it was 13. She clinched up on 13 because she won 6 and 5. So we watched Megan Kang clinch up on 13, and like there's 6 of us. It's me, my brother, Patty, his mom, and your wonderful parents,
Mr. and Mrs. Veshy.
Yes, who I love so much. And I'm locked in. I'm watching golf. We're in a really good spot, and there's seemingly no one behind us. And some guy, I mean, at this point it had been a long day, so I'll make a couple excuses for him, but the guy that was behind us thought that he had right of way to everything in front of him, and I guess your dad caught him saying like, "Hey, down in front," and your dad looked over his shoulder and said, "It's not a fucking baseball game, pal." And like I talked to your dad about this, and he like kind of brushed it off, whatever, and he like kind of playfully like tapped me. He was like, "You got my back, right?" And
the Costanza.
And the guy behind us, like like he handled it like a gentleman, and he slid over to the right 4 or 5 feet, and all's well that ends well. I'll leave it there. Hell hath no fury like the scorned Mike Vecchi.
Oh my goodness!
It was fun. It was such a good time though, man. Like the last like pro golf event I went to, and I think it actually might have been at this course when we were in middle school, Nick.
No, we went to Live last year. Remember?
No. So I'm comparing the likeness because I went to a President's Cup event when we were in middle school, and I think it was this. It was either this course or it was congressional.
It's probably at this course. I feel like that was one thing they talked about is that this has hosted like several President's Cups. It probably was there.
So I was obviously like way too young, didn't have an appreciation for golf back in middle school. But I tell you what, after going to this, if I could go back and like watch it again, I would. Like I remember seeing VJ and I remember seeing Tiger and Phil at that President's Cup. But I honestly couldn't tell you what the score, who it was, who won.
The U.S. never loses that. I don't think the world has won that event in like 2 decades. Yeah, I think the 90s.
But I mean, like this was just so much fun, and at the end of it, and this is how I know that I'm not wrong here, is that my brother, who's never been to a golf event, while we're waiting in line to get back on the shuttles to leave, looked at me and was like, I'm not going to say that I had doubts or didn't like golf events. He was like, but this really like opened my eyes to how much fun this is. And we saw it at Live, but I think this is a much different atmosphere.
Yes. Our friends and sponsors, David and Bailey, they were at the Ryder Cup last year in Italy, and they had very similar sentiment to what they saw. They were like, man, it is hard to describe. It was so cool. Like even over there in enemy territory, right? They're like, it was still so cool to see everything. It was just so different than what you expect from a golf tournament and from what you normally see at a golf tournament. Not to bash any other tournaments. It's just the nature of it, the way it's set up, the fact that you are directly competing against someone else who's next to you. Because in a normal golf tournament, right, stroke play, they always say, I'm not competing against people, I'm competing against the course. I got to beat the course, right? So I try to not concern myself with what is the guy I'm playing with doing. And, it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
but you're not necessarily saying, oh, I won this hole versus that hole, right? In this type of match play thing, you could blow up a hole and it doesn't hurt you. You can, and that's a different mindset you have to
Yeah.
have of like, maybe there's different ways I go about attacking a hole
It's
as
a
opposed to,
match
I'm going to
play.
lay up here. I might just go at it. Oh, I miss it. Okay. I
Mhm.
lose this hole. And you also think about the other way. The hole's never over. I keep going. They may
Yeah.
mess up, right? And so we both get sevens on this hole, but we tie, and it's so different, right? Mentally, it's so different. I think that is part of what makes this so cool. And I think what a lot of people wish would happen more, like
Mhm.
wish there'd be more match play events throughout the year. I don't even know if there's any left. I
Not
believe
even
that the WGC Dell Technologies, whatever match play that used to
mhm.
happen in Austin on the men's side, I think this year was the last year they're doing it. So
Wouldn't surprise me.
that it's kind of like, man, this is so cool. Why don't we have more of this?
But the something that I think anyone should prepare themselves for is like it's again and like to emphasize it's match play. So the scoreboard is going to look super weird. When you see something Charlie Hull defeats Nelly Corda 6-4, you immediately would think like, oh, she only won holes 6-4. Like, what's the big deal? But no,
Or
like
she won 6 holes to 4 holes. That
yeah,
would have been my.
exactly. But like it's obviously scored very differently, and like what it takes to win is also very different, right? Like, and I think that's kind of one of the beautiful things about these match play tournaments is that it's the perfect embodiment of you have to beat the champ to be the champ, right? Tying at 14-14 doesn't do anything if you're trying to win the cup back,
Yeah.
right? If you're trying to regain it, it's perfect. But like Lilia Vu said it, I think in her post game presser, she said that one of their team mottos going into this was half points matter.
Yes.
Right. So you do see a lot of people either trying to set the tone early or just play very conservatively, play to a number and hit from there.
What's crazy
And
about that half points matter? I think the only half points came on the last day, right?
yeah,
I think our girl Lauren Coughlin, she came back. I believe she was down 3
she was
in
down
that,
3 at one point, and we kind of
and
walked away
fairly
from
late,
her.
like about halfway through the round, and
I
came
thought
back.
she was going to hit the winning putt.
So,
to end it. I
it's-
was like, oh, here it is. Like,
so it's funny
Like, it's
it's-
written storyline. Like, this is going to be it.
It's funny you bring that up because the American captain Stacy Lewis, who also captained the team last year,
Yes.
she did a phenomenal job. She brought in, I can't remember, it was one of her sponsors handled the analytics for all the Solheim Cup team members on the American side and analyzed it all and figured out where they were gaining strokes, what kind of holes were different golfers on our team excelling at through the year. And she said in her post match presser that where the US surged was exactly where she knew they would. She identified 6 holes at RTJ where they would excel, and it was holes 10 through 15. And that's exactly where Lauren Coughlin made her surge. And it's where I believe the US went for the most part undefeated on those holes. It's where we saw Megan Kang close out her match. Corpuz closed out her match on 15. Rose closed out her match on 14. So I mean, her analytics were spot on, and she said that analytics in terms of like strokes gained stats haven't really been part of the LPGA since like 2021. So it's still like relatively new and developing. So for her to go out and like devour the analytics to get an edge, I mean, she used every tool at her disposal, and I don't think that she's getting enough credit. But I mean, shout out to her. I mean, her work ethic and her being able to stay on for a second year as a captain really, I think, catapulted them to victory.
Yeah, I believe the same captain on the European side, I think Suzanne Pedersen, I think, was her name. But again, because we are an educational show, I know you're both dealing with dogs for whatever reason.
I'm not dealing with dogs. I'm good.
I am dealing with a dog right now.
But for educational purposes, you said like the score, 6-4. What does that mean? So that means that you're up by 6 holes with 4 holes left, meaning, at this point, you've won at least 6 holes and they haven't, beaten you on any of them. So you went into that, what 5 holes left would be what, 13th, 14th hole?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You went into that hole up by 5, knowing that if I win this hole, even if they were to win the rest of the holes, they still couldn't beat me. So they'll call the match, right? That they won't keep playing. They won't just play it out to play it out. They'll play, every match happens and plays to a winner, but they won't play every hole. So if you won 3 and 2, that meant there were 2 holes left, and you're up by 3. Well, they can't beat you at that point, right? If you win 1 up, that means you were tied going into the last hole and you won that hole, right? So, and what's cool too about it is you can go through swings. You can go, oh, I'm up 2, and then they won 2. Now we're tied. Yep. They won 2 more. I'm down 2. Then I won 2. We're tied, right? And it kind of goes through those fluctuations, which I do think is awesome. And I mean, I love that format.
Outside of some of the first couple pairings to tee off, the stress level on that golf course for the Americans was huge, because at any given moment, you would see a lot of red on the scoreboard, to the score being tied, red being Americans were up. But there was a lot of very, very close matches, and everyone was saying oh my gosh, if Lauren Coughlin doesn't close this out, we're toast. We're absolutely toast, because every other match was either tied or we were down 1. And thank goodness, Willie Avu, her approach shot, she stuck within 2 feet. It was a gimme. But
they made her putt it out though.
Oh, you gotta.
Which is interesting though, because last year at the Ryder Cup, Ricky didn't make Fleetwood put it out on whatever that hole was, and that won the year. Yeah, he conceded. And it wasn't a gimme either. That was was 5 feet.
There was some,
and it was he kind of. I mean, I love Ricky, but he kind of got a little heat for that, because come on, man, it doesn't matter how far the putt is. If it's the clinching putt, you have to know it's the clinching putt. 1 and 2, you have to make them. You have to make whoever it is putt that out. It's for the championship. That's like saying, I fouled you going up for the winning layup. You missed it, but you got 2 shots. You got to make 1 to win. I'll just give it to you. You don't have to shoot the free throws. No, you got to make them putt it out.
So something that I was saying all day was, I don't want to cheer for misses.
Mm-hmm.
I want to cheer for makes. And
agreed.
We were on a tear on that par 3, number 4, and where Lexi was coming up, and she would have been the 4th American. She was going to be the 4th American in a row that we saw there win that hole. And her tee shot lands. Somehow the ball sits up on a downslope on the green about 30 feet away. She's going to have to putt a double break. And I was looking at it. I was like, that's going to be a really tricky putt. And then Celine Bautier put hers pretty close. And Lexi steps up. She walks up to the green, and everybody's chanting her name. Lexi, Lexi. Oh, it was nuts. I lost my voice on that hole for probably the next hour. It was tough to talk, but Lexi buries this 30-foot putt, and it goes. The place erupts. The hole erupts, right? And I looked at your dad. I kind of baited him into this. I looked at your dad. I was like, if Bautier misses this putt, I'm gonna go crazy. And he was like, oh no, you can't cheer for a miss. I was like, Mike, this is huge. This is
America.
I was like, this would
we
put
make our own ridiculous rules.
I was like, you mean to tell me you're not going to go crazy if Lexi Thompson wins a hole by 1 putting a 30-footer? He goes, it's a good point. And so sure enough, Bautier hits her putt, and it lips out around the left edge, and the only thing you hear is him going, he put his fists up and kind of stifled it and looked at me and went. I went over and I had to lean on him. I was laughing so hard.
Oh my god! All right, last thing before we go, do we know if you got on TV or not?
I don't know.
Damn.
I was in some spots where it wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know.
You got some, like you said, you got some good pictures, videos, right?
Yeah, check out
So
the social media coming soon.
yep, I was just about to say we'll post those to especially to Instagram, give you some sights and sounds from that great event over the weekend. Just again before we move on, Solheim Cup happened. Robert Trent Jones Golf Club in Gainesville, Virginia. The United States defeated Europe 15.5 to 12.5 to take back the Solheim Cup. Next time, obviously, it's going to be in Europe. I think the Netherlands, is that where it is? I think in 2026. I thought I saw.
Be a fun
So
trip.
that
Holland? Is it
uh,
Holland?
Holland is the Netherlands.
then
Then
who are
who are
the?
the Dutch?
Thank you. That's actually factually wrong. Holland is a state or a region in the Netherlands, so it's actually wrong to say it. But Costanza said it.
Seinfeld was always right. Nope.
Thank you. So that's going to wrap it up for our Solheim Cup coverage. We're going to move on now to our next biggest thing, which is our NFL coverage for this past week, NFL Week 2. Time to start overreacting, right? Because Week 1 happens.
Yeah.
You can chalk a lot of stuff up to the fact that none of these guys play any preseason games anymore. Half these guys don't even go to training camp anymore because they hold out for contracts. You could chalk a lot of it up to just rust and getting together. But now that you got a week under your belt, you could say Week 2 you can overreact to, right? Because it's kind of we've got something happening now. Let's see what's going on here. So just to kind of recap, first thing I got here: Austin Seibert kicked a franchise record 7 field goals for the Commanders, including the game winner as time expired in Washington's 21-18 win over the Giants. He accounted for all of their points.
By the way, what's hilarious is that's 2 weeks in a row that a kicker has accounted for all the points and the team has won.
Are the Steelers right in Week 1?
Steelers in Week 1.
Yes.
Boring.
Commanders in Week 2.
Hey, kickers have I got a lot every last 2 weeks, NFL and college. So much kicker stuff here on a positive note that kickers have been fantastic. As
They really have.
As we love Pat McAfee and always shits on people about you talking crap about kickers. Kicking's not that easy. Honestly, you try it. These guys are making it look easy. We are watching possibly a golden age of kickers. We said this about the shortstops, right, in baseball. Really, right now, there are almost everything is guaranteed. It's rare that you see a miss. These guys are that good, and it's pretty amazing. But Austin Seibert, who was actually playing his first game, because Cade York, I think, was the kicker for Washington in the first game, he missed his 2 field goals. So they bring in Seibert. That's also kind of where we're at here. It's very cutthroat in the kicking world now if you're not, converting all of these things. Yep. But Seibert won them this game. Franchise record 7 field goals. The Giants are the first team in NFL history to score 3 touchdowns, allow 0, and still lose the game. Because their kicker, Graham Gano, got hurt on the opening kickoff.
Yep,
so they
had to go for 2 constantly.
Well, they tried an extra point with their punter, missed it miserably. So they say, screw this, we're just going to go for 2. Miss those miserably and lose the game and make history. But a nice trivia question for you. Seibert, again, finished 7 field goals. It's 1 shy of the NFL record for field goals in a game. Held by who?
Sebastian?
No, that's a good guess. I like that guess. It was not him because he did play in some crappy Raiders teams where you would think he'd have a lot of opportunities. No, not him.
Is it Gostkowski?
Nah, Tom put it in the end zone too much. Right. Boy, one more guess.
It is one more. I want one more.
Fine.
Elliot.
No. Kamala. Boy, all right, Elliot. In the morning, you're eating here. It's just crunching in the microphone. No, it is the late great Rob. My Baronis had 8 field goals in the Titans' win over the Texans in October 2007.
My name is Rob Baronis.
He's been dead for 10 years.
Has he really?
Yes, he died the year after he retired in a single car accident.
Damn.
Jeez,
unfortunately.
I did not know that.
Yeah. My Baronis.
Tennessee?
Yep, for Tennessee over Houston in October 2007. He stands alone. There's actually a lot of people who have hit 7 in a game, shockingly. But one who's gotten 8, and it was Rob Baronis in that victory over Houston. Baltimore, they blew a 10-point fourth quarter lead. Remember 10-point fourth quarter leads being blown, so we'll come back to that here in a second. They blew a 10-point fourth quarter lead to the Raiders, led by the incomparable Gardner Minshew, who engineered 3 fourth-quarter scoring drives, including setting up Daniel Carlson's game-winning field goal with 27 seconds left as Vegas beat the Ravens 26-23. That is a bad loss by the Ravens, especially after week 1 where, they lost to the Chiefs. You expect that. It's hard to make the playoffs and win your division starting 0-2. Like, the statistics are against you, right? You say, okay, schedule's favorable. We play the Chiefs, then we'll play the worst team in the AFC West. We'll come out 1-1 at the worst. We're good.
Especially being a home game with a West Coast team coming.
That was a home game?
Yes.
My goodness, you're right.
That was in Baltimore at 1:00, which means it was at 10 a.m.
No, Vegas is Mountain Time, isn't it?
No, it's not.
You sure?
I think it might fluctuate. It might be like Arizona.
Efforting.
Or is it just
Vegas
it has no time frame because everyone
Vegas
is just
in Pacific Daylight Time.
Thank you.
Interesting.
I was there last year at this time.
Interesting.
Nice.
But yeah, you're right. That's a bad loss. Some more good field goal stuff here. Jason Myers hit the game-tying field goal as time expired for the Seahawks, and then hit the winning field goal in overtime as Seattle knocked off the Patriots in New England 23-20. Another West Coast team coming over and defeating an East Coast team, which historically is hard. It's hard. When you go across the coast, it's hard.
Especially when you play that 1 p.m. slot. But yeah, I mean, Chargers did it too.
Well, to be fair, they
played a D2.
Yeah, they might as well be playing UNC Charlotte out there is what they rolled out. What they've been rolling out there in
wait till Big Red gets out there next week, though.
In Carolina, yeah.
Dumpster fire.
Yes,
Big Red, baby.
That is what we would call a dumpster fire. Harrison Butker, I hardly know her, kicked the game-winning 51-yard field goal as time expired to give the Chiefs a 26-25 win over the Bungles, who bungled that game away. Yes, they did. But it goes to that championship mentality. It goes to how great the Chiefs are, really. And yes, it seems like everyone wants to be hyperbolic in everything of like, oh, we're going to anoint all these people the greatest of all time, right? Great. I think Shaq came out and said something about greatest of all time. This is ridiculous. Why are you calling me that? There's can only be one. I'm one of the greats, right? And it's that type of mindset that we have, unfortunately. But the Chiefs are doing something that is amazing that we should take note of, right? They're going for a three-peat. Don't they already have 3 Super Bowls, right? Yes, they had one. They won one before. So we're seeing
they remind me so much of those old Patriot teams that won with defense. It was you have the best quarterback of a generation. Your defense keeps you in the game and is dominant. You have a slot receiver that can get open in a phone booth, right? Rashee Rice and Welker, Edelman, Branch, name any of those guys, right? So you have a dominant tight end, right?
Yeah.
You have a go-to guy. So it's literally like the game will be in reach within the fourth quarter, and the greatest quarterback of a generation will come down the field and get you in position to win a game.
Yeah, and you don't have to play your best game either.
No. They clearly haven't.
No, and that is a sign of a great team is that you can win with your BC stuff, right? A great starting pitcher can win games with their BC, sometimes D stuff, right? They don't always have to be on their A game. Mahomes and the Chiefs don't always have to be on their A game. I think there was a lot of kind of let's try to poke holes into them the last couple of years because they weren't putting up those crazy numbers offensively that they had before when they had Tyreek Hill. But it doesn't matter because they're going to find a way.
A better team the way they're doing it now, right?
Yes.
It's that Patriot way, like what they were doing with the Patriots, like that 2017 or 2007 team with the Patriots that had the best offense maybe we've ever seen.
Randy.
Yeah, the undefeated team that lost in the Super Bowl to the Giants. I mean, they didn't win a Super Bowl, but they won a Super Bowl, playing absolutely nobodies at the receiver position. I mean, who was it? Hogan?
Chris Hogan.
And was a lacrosse player in college.
And Edelman and our boy James White at running back from Wisconsin, right? You had those guys out there. Yeah. No,
the crazy thing, too, I mean, is that, like, I think we can all agree the Chiefs have not been playing their A football through 2 weeks. their schedule has not been easy. They have the Bengals first. They have Bengals week 1, and then the Ravens in Baltimore.
They're also doing what I think like
that was in Kansas City. They played in Kansas City, but both of them were at home.
Still, though, to beat those teams,
like I wouldn't be shocked if they lose a game or two within the first 4 or 5 games, just because like you're experimenting with what you have. Like
that's what
Belichick did this all the time, where he would experiment.
Andy Reid's from that generation of coach.
Yeah, he knows at the end of the day he's going to win that division, right? I need to get my players in like positions where they'll succeed. So like we're doing so and so defense or so and so offense, whatever it is, and if something doesn't work, it's like okay, we can adjust from here. We'll change that. We'll do this, and the next thing he's got a way of doing that and knowing they're good enough to win the division, so he's always going to be in the playoffs. And now when they hit the playoffs, they know exactly what they're doing. And they're the best.
And they have no tendencies. They have all these things that someone hasn't seen that they've set things up for. They know. You're right. You said we lose 4 games. Who gives a crap?
Doesn't matter.
Right? It is. You're right. It's so Belichickian. It's Belichick used to throw games all the time to the Dolphins. The crappy Dolphins. It would be like huge point spreads and they would lose and people would lose their mind. And it's like, no, Belichick did that not necessarily on purpose to say I would lose, but said, here's our game plan this week. We're going to do these things. We're only going to show these looks. We're only going to run these plays. We're going to try these certain formations, these certain things, see what works. And at the end of the day, if we win, we win. If we lose, we lose. It doesn't matter. Yeah. I know I'm good enough to beat the Jets again. I'm good enough to beat Peyton because I have his number. The Bills who stunk, right? We're going to win this division. It doesn't matter. Let's like that. And like you said, it's what I think you see from the Chiefs a lot of the time. Right? You come in the playoffs, it doesn't matter what seed we're in the playoffs, right? We're going to get to the playoffs. Yeah, doesn't matter. It's not going to be perfect. And
pencil them into the AFC Championship, right?
Yeah. I mean, yes. It's like the Astros. They're going to get to the conference finals, right? Or conference championship, whatever it is. Yeah. Moving on, Alvin Kamara had 4 touchdowns as the Saints clobbered the Cowboys 44-19 in Jerry World. New Orleans is averaging 45 and a half points per game through 2 games. Granted, they played the garbage Panthers, and then they played the Cowboys, who are prone to letdowns like this, as they've demonstrated over the last 25 years. Kirk D. Cousins led a 70-yard touchdown drive in 1:05, which culminated in the game-winning touchdown pass to Drake London with 34 seconds left, as the Falcons topped the other birds, the Eagles, 22-21 in Philly. I didn't see Doyle McPoyle out there for the Eagles, so I think that may have been what cost them. But that was a pretty, good for Kirk. Good for Kirk coming back from that injury. That's a win. That's a loss the Eagles shouldn't have had. I think on that final drive when they're at like 3rd and 3 on the 10-yard line, their win probability was like 95, 97%, something asinine. And, of course, they run a pass. And, yes, Saquon drops it, and everyone wants to point to that. But no one wants to look at the antecedents that led to the decision where, they're such an analytics-driven team, as Belichick pointed out during the Manning cast last night over and over again about certain decisions that they made. But then Belichick would go, okay, so they're looking at the analytics, and it tells them to go for it on 4th down. Well, if you know you're going for it on 4th down, run the ball on 3rd down to get yourself closer to make it easier. Instead, we'll throw a pass. That'll be incomplete. And then, it costs us. And it's kind of that final drive was emblematic of that. They run that pass play when really it would have behooved them, especially again, because they're so analytics driven, to run the ball with Saquon, then run it again with him. Because I believe I saw that their percent chance to win by going for it on 4th down, I think regardless of result, was at 95%. Kicking the field goal, making it put their win probability at 90%, because there's a 20-yard difference in field position that the Falcons gained by kicking the field goal and then kicking the ball off and getting it at the 30, as opposed to stopping them and getting it at the 10-yard line. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, and two, if you run it on 3rd down, the clock keeps running. Yes. So you would have given them less time, right? With no timeouts. I think the Falcons had no timeouts. So it's like, I understand the going for the jugular, right?
There
But
are
but common
times,
sense thing,
yes.
Belichick would have lost his mind and fired that coordinator on the spot if that coordinator ran that play. Turn the ball, hand it off, let the clock run down, and then okay, we'll kick our field goal if we miss. That I know that's the safe thing to do, and that's not flashy. It doesn't look cool, but that's the right play. And again, if you're not going to kick
especially in the NFL,
you go forward and run it again. Yes, running the ball matters, contrary to popular belief. And even Peyton and Eli are sitting there saying, run like Mr. Orson at the stands at a county game, run the damn ball. Like that's it's amazing because these defenses are set up to stop passes. So they're vulnerable against the run.
Well, I mean, Saquon was, if you looked at like the film, I mean, the all 22 cam that they have, if you watch like some of the replays of that, oh my, the offensive line was getting a massive push.
Yes.
Each time, and Saquon, you tell me you can't get 3-4 yards in 2 carries.
Can we?
I mean, maybe you don't, but the clock still runs.
It's still you take out a variable. Yes, he's wide open on the play, but the variable is the ball's in the air and you have to catch it as opposed to handing it directly to him. And we're talking about human beings who are fallible. It's not a video game where they're going to run the percentage. Oh, his catch rating is this. The pass was thrown like this, right? It's not a video game, right? You can't live life through a screen and through numbers. You can use them to help you, but at some point in time, you got to sit there and say, what is the right thing to do? You got to trust your brain and what you see. And that's a lost art, not just in football. We talked about it in baseball. We talked about it, hell, in basketball too. So many things where you see decision makers second guess things. You see players second guess things, right?
Let's tangent for a second real quick because we've mentioned his name a couple times and you even shouted out. Let's talk about the Manning cast because if Monday Night Football rolls around and the Manning cast is on and you're not watching it, what are you doing? Like,
it's so good.
It's so good. It's so much better. The production value has just continues to get better and better
with Belichick.
And
Belichick is
they brought
so
Belichick
good.
back for a second week, and he was there for the whole first half, pretty much.
I think is he doing that each game? I think
he was. Half, right? He did it last week.
Best life. This dude's living his
awesome.
best life. Stevie and I were texting during it, and I told him I was like, for as long as we watched Belichick coach with the Patriots, I could count on one hand how many times I've seen him smile. But this past year, without the headset and the clipboard, I mean, the dude is smiling all the time. I mean, he seems like he's having the time of his life doing like the Manning cast and the Pat McAfee show. Like, I mean, it's criminal that he doesn't have a job. I'm just gonna say it. It's criminal he doesn't have a job right now in football. Yes.
How do you know he doesn't like it that way?
Well, so that's my point. Is like, it's criminal that he doesn't have a job in football. He's I think one of the best, if not the best mind in football. But watching him like sit down with the boys, even though he had a suit and tie on for the Manning cast, like sit down with the boys and yuck it up and throw a couple jabs back and forth. Like there was that one back and forth he had with Peyton. And he was like, yeah, you did it against us. You ran it against us.
He remembers it immediately. Yes. He recalls all of these things immediately. And it's like, you remember this one play from 20 years ago in a regular season game. That's insane. Like but that's what made him great. And you talk about the not smiling thing. Great. That is kind of what you saw from like a Joe Torre and a Derek Jeter during all of that. Like the position you're in, the microscope that's on you, if you give them anything, the media, the public, they're going to take from you everything, right? They're going to try to find weaknesses. They're going to try to exploit or make some story from you. But if you give them no story to have, they're powerless. You take that power away. And that's what Belichick knew is that, look, if I just keep quiet and don't say anything, and don't put off anything, no one can come at me for anything, right? That whole idea. I mean, he's that smart. He understood that. Jeter knew that, right? Joe Torre knew that, understood it. They played it perfectly. That's why they were so successful in those markets and under the scrutiny of what modern media is. So,
he's having so much fun now that he doesn't have to do that. And what I love too is that when you like listen to him talk, I mean, he's so smart, so good. But listen to like the things he's saying, it's very simplified. Like if you actually listen to like he's like, well, like the first week he was like, stop Wilson, double Wilson, what are we doing? Like very simple things.
Yes.
That for some reason, like, I mean, this is one of the greatest minds ever to coach the game, but like everyone wants to outthink something.
Yes.
Whatever it is, and he's like, just to stop
do
the
this
best
and,
players.
Yeah,
he's made a big success off of like people outthinking themselves. Like,
yeah, I mean, he was talking about how he would double
Yes.
double the best, like the top receiver, he would double them, and then he wouldn't double them using his best corner.
Correct.
He would use his best corner on your number 2.
So you take away both options.
Yeah, force you to use your number 3 receiver, tight end, whatever it is. And it was like, that's such a simple thing to do.
And if you don't have a good number 3, I think they talked about it last night. If you don't have weapons, you're screwed. You're done. If you don't have a plethora of guys, okay, we took the top 2 away, you're done. Game over. But it's funny, I think he would psych people out with that, right? He would psych teams out with that. He would psych teams out with certain things because he would outsmart them. So they would think, I've got to outsmart this guy. And he would take them out of their game plan.
Well,
he would take away their best thing and it would force them to panic, and they couldn't make the adjustments if they even needed to. And he would just steamroll these people.
Do you remember
with his brain?
Like, what was it, the 13-9,
13-3,
13-3 Super Bowl?
The Rams. Yeah,
where he was just like, Sean McVay was like, this offense is unstoppable. It's incredible. And he did that with 2 Rams teams that were unstoppable and incredible, and just completely shut them down. But there's like an NFL Films thing where he's like mic'd up and they have the camera on Belichick, and he's just like, where's Sean? He's literally just following him. And he's like, I got him. And it's like, it was incredible. It was like, yeah, this game's over. Like before it starts, he's just like staring Sean McVay down, just watching him like move and talk. And he's like, all right, yeah, it's over. Like he's not doing anything. It's me.
Yeah, it is pretty awesome. And we'll move on now to college football. So we had week 3 in college football. My first thing I had here was involving UNLV. I'm about to throw out a name from the past that you haven't heard in a while. But UNLV, they scored a late touchdown or a late score to beat Kansas 23-20. It's UNLV's first 3-0 start since 1984. Do you know who was playing quarterback for the Rebels in 1984 when they went 10-1?
I should know it. Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna get it. I should know it because I think they said his name.
It is Randall Cunningham.
Yep.
Randall Cunningham, who was awesome, by the way. Eagles and Vikings great. Randall Cunningham was the QB the last time UNLV started 3-0, which is amazing.
Running Rebels.
Yes. LSU, they erased a 17-0 deficit at South Carolina as SC's kicker just missed a game-tying 49-yarder as time expired for the Tigers' 36-33 win in Columbia. So that's a pretty fun game to be at.
Did you see the little kid
flipping off
the LSU
little
receiver?
Yes, that made my day.
It's different down there.
Yep. Staying with some Tigers, we go to Mizzou. The other Tigers, or actually the other Tigers in the SEC, because you have Auburn. But Mizzou outlasted Boston College 27-21. Luther Burden, who may be the best receiver in the country, had 6 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. The Mizzou Tigers have now won 3 straight games versus ranked opponents because somehow BC got ranked 24th heading into this week. Yeah. Versus ranked opponents. It's their longest such streak since they won 4 games against ranked opponents in a row in 1976. So was it Eli Drinkwitz down there in the other Columbia, right? Yeah. Columbia, Missouri.
Yeah, we talked about them of like they lost their bell cow in their back, and what they were going to do. He's a running coach. They even with Burden and return the QB, they're a running team. He wants to be physical. He wants to run the football. So I think he's gonna stick with that all year.
Yeah,
which makes me like that team. They have a very favorable schedule.
I feel like all the SEC schools have a very favorable schedule, except for like the crappy teams in Georgia and Florida.
Yeah.
Right. Speaking of Georgia, they survived barely at Kentucky 13-12. Here's a crazy stat for you. No, here. This is what happened. In the past 5 years, Georgia has been held under 20 points on the road only 3 times. all 3 times were at Kentucky.
That bluegrass getting them.
No,
it's it before the game or something. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, you play 18 on it, then you get thrown to the bejesus afterwards. Cannonball here.
Kentucky bluegrass in California.
But no, it's Mark Stoops as the head coach over there, defensive-minded coach, a great coach. To be able to win any games at Kentucky at a program that was very reluctant to pour really any resources into their football program because they're such a basketball school. The fact that not only does he have them always making bowl games, but pretty much every year they wind up ranked. Right? Yeah, they're not ranked like top 10, but they'll get ranked at some point. And to be able to do that at all at Kentucky is amazing. He is an incredible coach for what he's done. And I think that's what it is that he relies on certain things, uses them to his advantage, and he may have something on Kirby Smart, or Kirby Smart's pulling a Belichick and being like, well, it doesn't matter really if we win this game or not. I think it's more of the prior, not the latter, that Mark Stoops is just that good of a defensive mind. Moving on, Notre Dame, we highlighted them last week for some negative on their part. They bounced back this week. They walloped Purdue. That may be the kindest word I could give. 66-7. It's the worst loss in school history for the Boilermakers. That was over before it started.
Absolute beatdown.
Yeah, that one of Notre Dame's, 3 true road games this year? So they won't play another true road game until the last game of the season against Southern Cal.
So they've ranked A&M again. Do you see that?
Yes, and they moved Northern Illinois up.
22. Yeah, what the hell? All to save Notre Dame's face and ego. I mean, come on. What the hell are we doing? A&M's not good. Like, Florida sucks. We know Florida sucks. Like, what are we doing?
No, I mean, it's part of it. I think they're putting A&M there. Yes, the Notre Dame thing, I do think there's some weird tinfoil hat conspiracy theory there. But I also think it's because they're in the SEC and A&M is so wealthy and all these things. It's like, oh, we could rank UNLV, but that doesn't move the needle for us financially. So we're gonna put A&M there. That seems. I mean, it's again, like you said, Northern Illinois is not ranked in any of the other polls, right? I think in the coaches poll, they would be ranked like 28th, 29th. Something like that. And they're ranked 23rd, 7 full spots of difference, possibly in the AP poll. So it's why we're probably thankful that they moved the playoff to the way it is, because, yeah, there'll always be a debate about who gets in and who doesn't on those last spots. But at the end of the day, you're right. The contenders, the people who really deserve to be there, will be there, regardless of what these pollsters or committees have under their ulterior motives. Right.
Yeah, I mean,
which we saw last year.
Yeah, we're always going to be upset with whoever, like the bubble teams, right? We're always going to. It doesn't matter with March Madness, same thing.
Yes.
It's 64 teams that get in. We're upset that 68 teams that get in. We're upset with the 69th team that got left out. We're like, how'd they get left out? Well,
don't be the 69th team. Be be the 45th. Be the 12th team, and you won't have to worry about it, right?
If you're the 13th team
in college,
you're most likely your chances to win a national championship are really, really low.
Right,
so
that ain't part of the bell curve.
And the good thing about the way it is too is if you are the 13th or whatever 14th, depending on how many teams move in as the top 5 conference champions, right? Because you could still have them ranked lower. If you're at that point, you had opportunities to not be there, right? If they're going to rank you 13th, that means you could have been ranked 6th.
Right, win your games, right?
Yes. You everyone has this in their control for the most part. I know there are some things that help people, like where you start preseason ranking wise, the conference you play in, the money you have, unfortunately, the 5-star recruits you have, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, you're right. If you go undefeated, it's going to be hard for them to not have you in that top. Right? If you take care of what you need to take care of. Speaking of taking care of what they need to take care of, I told you to keep in the back of your head blowing 10-point fourth quarter leads. Ooh. The Mountaineers of West Virginia they blew a 10-point fourth quarter lead, a late 10-point fourth quarter lead, and allowed Pitt to score 2 touchdowns in less than 3 minutes for a 38-34 Panthers victory in the backyard brawl. I think Pitt has now won 3 straight brawls against West Virginia.
They have not. We
beat
them last year. West Virginia beat them last year in Morgantown. Sure? Yes, 17-6.
Maybe it's 3 straight in Pittsburgh they've won.
Yeah, that would make sense. 3 straight in Pittsburgh. Because, I mean, the 2022 year when they blew it with Bryce Ford-Wheaton, who was the NFL receiver that we had, dropping the pass right to him, and then gets a pick 6, and we lose that game.
Oh yeah, it popped up, and the guy took. Yep. I remember that. That was
rough.
Last
year, Pitt was just god awful, and their quarterback was so bad, and Garrett Green got hurt, I think, in the first series. So that game literally just became a defensive struggle, just like it was one of the sloppiest games I think I've ever seen last year, and West Virginia won 17-6. This year, that one hurt.
Yep, that's not a good loss.
Pitt winning that game broke West Virginia Twitter. It was hilarious. Like, obviously, I want West Virginia to win. I don't like Pitt, but to see the reaction from the West Virginia Twitter was pretty funny. Like, they're all over, like, Neil Brown's the worst coach ever. He's had a chance. He needs to go. Like, the guy
let's just fire his ass right now. Don't even let him coach another game.
They want him fired right now. They want defensive coordinator fired. I mean, not gonna lie, the defensive coordinator has not been good. But the defense in that second half, at one point, Pitt ran 19 plays for 20 yards up until that 4-minute and 55-second mark when West Virginia took the 10-point lead. All of a sudden, after that, they went off and scored 14 straight, like, real fast. So West Virginia's defense actually was doing great in the second half. You can't give up the punt block was awful. Can't have that. And then all of a sudden the secondary fell apart again. And then QB Holstein is just running up the middle, where they did a great job all game of keeping him in the pocket. And I think TJ Jackson, the defensive tackle, had like 3 sacks. Like, he was all over the place. And then for some reason we just like forget how to play defense. And he's running up the middle for 20, 30 yards, and then guys are getting behind it. 2nd and 30 was that touchdown pass. And by the way, there was pass interference on it. How that can never happen, to go 2nd and 30. The guy throws it up there and he gets behind the defense. He gets behind 3 players.
Yeah.
And one of them interfered with him. Like, how bad do you have to get beat? Like, I don't know, scheme wise, also like Josiah Trotter, who's the son of Jeremiah Trotter. And he's looked phenomenal at middle linebacker, especially in run fit. But at the end of the day, he's a 240-pound linebacker, and they had him covering the running back one-on-one in pass situations. Their running back for Pitt is the best player on that offense, and he's lightning fast. You can't, like, as good as Trotter is, it's impossible for him to cover.
Yeah, well, that's where scheme wise, because you can't put you can't use you can't use a secondary player on him. Maybe a safety, but you put yourself in a bind if you're going to do that. You really should shift if you know you shift to some sort of zone defense is what you need to do.
There were two touchdowns in the first half where that running back with a linebacker on him.
Yeah,
that can't happen as a defensive coordinator. But the collapse at the end of that game was just abysmal, and I think what makes it so terrible for West Virginia, like so annoying, is that coming into this year, this team went 9-4 last year and returned pretty much the entire offense. You return a senior at quarterback who was putting up incredible numbers last year. You'd have to think all the offseason talk is he's improved so much as a passer. He looks great. Like, he's going to be almost impossible to stop. The 2 running backs come back. One was a freshman All-American last year. The other is 240 pounds and can bulldoze you, right? Offensive line has a late first round draft pick at left tackle. It's all redshirt seniors pretty much, except for the left guard, who has a year starting under his belt. So the offensive line has actually been very good, I think. The receivers all came back. And you added 2 big body receivers in Justin Robinson, who made that one-handed catch, and Jaden Bray from Oklahoma State. So you added big body receivers. You returned the tight end who's 6'7", 255. This offense should be elite, and they're not.
Well, hey, on the bright side, WVU still has a chance to go 9-4. Right, they can go 10-3. Right, they still have that opportunity.
You have to play. I mean, you have the Big 12 in front of you. They have not
Yeah.
lost. They have not played a conference game yet.
Yes,
So your conference games are fine. However, I think it was the way West Virginia has come into the season with all that hype, all the people around thinking they should hit the ground running. They got embarrassed in week 1 to Penn State. I mean, that was unbelievably embarrassing. But you go, okay, whatever. One game, Penn State, maybe they're better than we thought. Shake it off. You had a lot of hype around that game. Whatever. One game. This Pitt team is very mediocre. They were 3-9 last year. I know that's a different team because they have to be, and they're 3-0 now. But good for Pitt. They came back against Cincinnati, down like 21. They came back against West Virginia.
We're on Cincinnati.
Yeah, good. I mean, good for Pitt to win these games, but West Virginia, you gotta show up in these rivalry games.
Yeah.
And now, as far as disappointing teams go this year, Florida State's number 1. Right?
Florida's probably number 2.
Florida probably number 2. Kansas, which West Virginia plays next, and I would say West Virginia and maybe Virginia Tech.
Well, Tech still has gone 2-1, but yes, you speak of Big 12. Big 12's only played one conference game so far, and it was UCF TCU. This
great game.
Just this past weekend, where the Knights, they were down 21 points in the third quarter. They battled back to take their first lead of the game with 36 seconds left against the Horned Frogs on KJ Jefferson, former Arkansas great KJ Jefferson. His touchdown pass to Kobe Hudson to win the game 35-34. What's amazing too, you brought up Kansas, who UNLV just beat. UNLV, if they were in the Big 12, would be the number 1 team in the Big 12. They are 2-0 against the Big 12.
So is Pitt.
They beat Houston and they beat Kansas.
So is Pitt.
Yeah,
beat
Cincinnati and West Virginia. Yeah, so kind of an odd thing there. Last one here, Tennessee, who our friend reporter in the field, Pat McGrory, reported on admirably last week. They stomped another opponent. This was poor Kent State, the Fighting Julian Edelmans, and they needed Edelman and they needed James Harrison out there, who also is a Kent State alum. But Tennessee thrashed them 71-0. Yes, 71-0. Dylan Sampson had 7 carries. He's the running back for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's over 17 yards per carry he averaged. Tennessee has a plus 178 point differential through their first 3 games, which is the most in SEC history. It's the second most since in the AP poll era, which is 1936. So but the thing is, we talk about easy schedules for SEC teams. Yes, Kent State and whoever they played first, I think it was like Chattanooga or something garbage, right? But they did play NC State, who they've been disappointment, I think.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But
I was going to throw in.
But it's still a Power 4 team. It's still a team that almost won 10 games last year. So blowing them out, that's kind of where that number is legitimate. But we'll move on now to our baseball segment. As always, our baseball segment is brought to you by Bobo's Fine Chicken in Virginia Beach. Visit Bo and Company on Shore Drive near Chicks Beach for breakfast, lunch, and dinner Monday through Saturday. Enjoy locally sourced Southern delicacies. Grab some on your way to the beach or to a ball game. Bobo's in baseball, there ain't nothing better. Start off a couple of Yankees notes here for you. Juan Soto, he delivered his first walk-off hit as a Yankee with an RBI single in the 10th inning for a 2-1 Yanks win over the Sox on Thursday. It was their second straight walk-off win because they walked off the Royals the day before. Then that was on Thursday, I believe. Then the next day, I think maybe on Saturday, but the Yankees were down 4-0 entering the 7th inning when Aaron Judge snapped his longest homerless drought of his career at 16 games with a go-ahead grand slam in the 7th as the Yankees went on to win 5-4 over the Sox. Judge has 53 home runs entering play today on Tuesday.
By the way, that was the Paw Patrol curse.
Yes, it was.
Since being on Paw Patrol.
It's the Rubble and Crew curse. Get it right. He was on Rubble and Crew, which is the spin-off of Paw Patrol. So please. But yes,
I'll get there in 6 months.
Yes, you're right. He had not hit a homer since that episode aired on August 26th, which is kind of funny. Next, in the Brewers 3-0 win over the Giants on Thursday, Jackson Chourio became the youngest player in MLB history at 20 years of age to register a 2020 season when he hit his 20th home run of the year during that game. It's pretty amazing. He was a very, very highly touted prospect. They signed him to a big extension last year before he even made it to the majors. So Jackson Chourio has been key for the Milwaukee, who's gonna win that division. I think they have they might have the largest lead of any division leader, to be honest.
When do you stop being a prospect?
You have to play a certain number of games in the majors.
Because there's always Jackson Holiday gets called up and
he was still the number one prospect.
Still the number one prospect. I don't understand how you're still once you're in the show where you're still a prospect.
No, I think it's you have to play X number of games to exceed rookie limits, right? You can't just get called up and sent back down. I think it's probably that where you have to. There's something there where those people who make those prospect lists, they're like, okay, you've done enough. You can no longer be on the list. Speaking of being down 4-0, we went through the Yankees. They were down 4-0 in the 7th. That same night, the Mariners were down 4-0 in the 7th. They scored 2 in the bottom of that frame, and then Julio Rodriguez hit a go-ahead 3-run homer in the 8th to propel the Mariners to a 5-4 victory over Texas. Thought that was kind of cool. Those both happened on the same day. Some Mets news. We love the Mets. They beat the Phillies 11-3 on Friday night, but then last night on Monday, they walked off the Nats 2-1 on Starling Marte's single in the 10th inning. It's the 11th walk-off win for the Mets this year, which is the second most in Major League Baseball this year. Entering play on Tuesday, the Mets are still somehow one game ahead of the Braves for the final wild card spot in the NL. The Amazons, it's amazing, if you will. Going out to Colorado, after Sam Hilliard hit a game-tying 2-run bomb in the bottom of the 9th inning against the Cubs, our boy Brenton Doyle Rules hit a walk-off single in the 10th for a 6-5 Colorado victory. I bought a pack of baseball cards over the weekend, kind of go through with my son, kind of teach him letters too with it. Like, hey, this isn't the Seattle S, that's an S. What letter is that? That's an S, right? But I pulled a Brenton Doyle card. I'm thinking of sending it to him to see if he can sign it. I think I might be able to get that.
That's pretty sweet.
Think that'd be cool. I might go see if I have a Jake Cave card too that could send that to, because he's on the Rockies. He's from Hampton, Virginia. Okay. He's another local kid, my local guy actually. He's no longer a kid, but see if you get those signed. I think that'd be pretty cool if I could get those back.
Teach Luca how to put it into the case and the binder.
No, he would take it and go, and the card would be gone. So no, I said we don't touch, we look. And that went over well. He said, forget this, I'm out.
Yeah.
You see this toy? It stays in the box.
Yeah. No, that Lou Ferrigno over there would just rip it to shreds. Elliot Ramos, former Flying Squirrels great over there in Richmond. I think we saw him play, Elliot Ramos, actually. He had a game-tying homer in the bottom of the 9th for the Giants against the Padres on Sunday. But what was notable about the homer is he's a right-handed hitter. He hit this homer right into McCovey Cove and straightaway right field, right? A cove shot. He's the first righty ever in the park's existence to hit one into the cove, right?
Is he really?
I think, yes, remarkable. He took a down and away pitch and just drove it. I believe they said 394 feet. Pretty awesome. But sadly, the Padres would eventually go on to beat San Fran 4-3 in extras. I think David Peralta hit the go-ahead single for the Fathers. The Diamondbacks, they blew a 5-run lead, but then they came back 2 different times to tie the game in the 8th and then take the lead for good in the 10th inning against the Brewers on Eugenio Suarez's RBI single, which I thought that was a wild game. They won 11-10. Kind of amazing.
Pretty special.
And the Fightins, the Phils, they became the first team to 90 wins on JT Realmuto's walk-off single and a 2-1 win over the Mets on Sunday, which brings me to our standings. Entering play on Tuesday, you had the Yanks. They're 3 games up on your O's. Kamlo. The Guardians are 5 games up over the Royals. In the Central, in the AL, the Astros are 4 games up over the Mariners in the West. Then on the NL side, you have the Phillies 8 games up over the Mets. The Brewers are 10 games up over the Cubs. Like I said, they have the largest lead of any team. And the Dodgers are only 3.5 games up over the Padres in the West. Right now, your wild card teams in the AL would be the Orioles, Royals, and Twins. And in the NL, they would be the Padres, Diamondbacks, and Mets.
If it stays this way, this might be the most excited I've been for a playoff push in a long time.
Because you have a lot of teams that have a shot. There's only 12 games left, I believe, entering Tuesday.
A lot of teams that have a shot and a lot of teams that are exciting and playing well at the right time.
Yeah.
Right. I think unfortunately, combo for your O's, they might be the only team that's scuffling going into the postseason.
It's bad right now.
But a lot of these teams are playing well at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's going to take us to our Mimosa Minute this week, brought to you as always by Main & Co., the creators of the modern mimosa. Follow them on Instagram at main_co and visit them at mainsip.com to order yours today. Check out their new release. It's a French 75, and be on the lookout for more new releases coming soon, possibly a beer. That is what we've heard. Main & Co. championing women's athletics since 2020. I had a couple things here. First thing, I got another Caitlin Clark update. It seems like every night she's doing something that is historic, which makes it noteworthy and eye-catching for us. With a career-high 35 points, Caitlin Clark set the WNBA single-season rookie scoring record in the Fever's 110-109 win over Dallas on Sunday. She's, been a game changer, and you've seen the other, like the Fever have not been good in a while, so they have a lot of pretty high picks, like top 3 draft picks on their team, and it seems like Clark is kind of been the missing piece. They've turned a corner. They've been on a roll. We said this last week, since the Olympic break. A'ja Wilson of the Las Vegas Aces, who is going to be the MVP. She's the best player in the world right now. But she became the first player in WNBA history to score 1,000 points in a season in the Aces' 84-71 victory over Connecticut on Sunday. It's pretty amazing. But what's also kind of interesting is if you look at the top scoring seasons in WNBA history, like the top 4 or 5 are all from this year and last year, right? Or like the year before that. So the last couple of years have produced the highest scores in WNBA history. It's kind of interesting that you see that happening in a league that's, it's not like this league's only been around 3 years. It's been around 25, 30 years, right? So it's pretty amazing to see that going on. I think what it's showing is there's a higher quality of offense going on in the WNBA. You're seeing offensive execution at an all-time high. Whether that means defensive execution is at an all-time low, I don't necessarily think so. I think you're seeing skill come into the league at a higher rate and prosper quicker than what you saw in the past. So pretty amazing there.
Don't know A'ja Wilson's game. Is there someone to compare her to? Like, who's her comp?
Oh, that's a good question.
Oh man, she's a big who can take you off the dribble though. Right. So I mean, do you want to go Wembanyama? I don't know if that's because Wembanyama is like,
he's freakish athlete.
Yeah, maybe an Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis. I think that's my comp, because Anthony Davis can shoot easy pull. He can pull up if you want. He can back you down. He can cut to the rim. He can do a whole lot of other things. He can rebound incredibly well. A'ja Wilson's a great rebounder. So yeah, I'd go Anthony Davis. That's who my comp would be. Anything else from Mimosa Minute wise before we move on?
No.
Solheim Cup.
Yeah, obviously.
Obviously.
What can I say that I haven't already said?
Yes, I love it.
I found it interesting that like the Solheim Cup, I was glued to while college football and NFL was happening.
Yeah,
I was like, gotta watch. I need to watch this. Like, I don't know, when was the last time any golf event has taken precedence over college football or NFL, regardless of men's or women's.
That's fair.
That was an incredible.
When the international match play rounds come up,
Ryder Cup did the same thing, right? They're always in September. Yeah. So that's going to do it for our Mimosa Minute this week, sponsored by Main & Co. Look for them at Indiana Fever home games, by the way, and order your modern mimosas today at mainsip.com. Main & Co. championing women's athletics since 2020. That's going to take us to our final segment, which is our favorites. each week we do a segment where we highlight our favorites of a certain category. So it's not who we think are the best, right? It's not who made the most money, scored the most points. It's who us as fans were our favorites, who we cheered for, who we wanted to see. Because at the end of the day, a lot of times that's different than greatest, right? A lot of times the rhetoric and the discussion and the debate is around, well, who is the greatest to do this? And at some point in time, it's kind of like, well, who cares? Because we don't watch it because we want to see the greatest. We watch it because we want to see the soap opera on the field and the court and the ice and the pitch unfold. That's unlike any other event you're going to see, anything else you could watch on TV, really. So that's why we want to do the segment each week, is to highlight our favorite of a certain categories. Before we get there, obviously our favorites each week are brought to you by One Legacy Title and Escrow in Jacksonville, Florida. Visit them at onelegacyflorida.com and follow them on Instagram at onelegacyflorida to learn how they can help you with your next house closing. One Legacy Title and Escrow, because your legacy matters. And this week, our favorites category was favorite relief pitchers. I think Kamlo had issue understanding the assignment fully. So we'll turn it over to him to start.
No issue.
Okay.
I picked a relief pitcher, and me being the wonderful podcaster that I am, didn't list any closers, because who's to say that we might not want to do a favorite closers in the.
But that would be a separate.
But I'm the only one who thinks that way. So
why couldn't you have them overlap? Why couldn't you have all closers for both lists? That would be valid. You would pass the assignment.
No, you'd fail the assignment because you're just plagiarizing your earlier works.
That's not how that works.
Mm-hmm.
Larry David had copied a lot of jokes from Seinfeld to Curb, and no one seems pissed off about that, myself included. So why does this matter?
Our podcast to Seinfeld or Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Yes, I am.
He's Ted Danson. Who's he? Who's he?
My artistic integrity is on the line here.
You're not artistic, and you have no integrity.
So here we go. So honorable mention. We're going to go with a guy that I picked purely based off of name alone. Yes. And then I went and researched it and found that it's actually a very valid pick. Al Albuquerque.
Yes.
Al Albuquerque. 10.0. 10.0 on the name scale. A couple stats for you about Big Al. Pitched in 264 games for over 7 seasons for Tigers, Angels, Royals, White Sox from 2011 to 2017, and he finished 58 games in his career.
Isn't he the one a caller called into like Mike Francesa or whatever, and like Mike Francesa, and asked, like, he was going through some stuff, like I guess someone's name was whatever, and he goes, "What about Al Albuquerque?" And he's like, "Oh, nice prank call, dude." Like, he got so pissed. He's like, "That's not a real person."
Yeah. So honorable mention, Al Albuquerque. Number 5, I'm going to show some love to Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. I'm going to give you a guy whose only defect is that he throws funny. We're going Chad Bradford.
Oh, what a great pick, Kamlo. That is.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're going Chad Bradford good. From Moneyball specifically, where he was just an absolute hero. Number 4, I'm going Ryan Webb. Ryan Webb at number
Diamondbacks?
4.
Is that? Mm-hmm. No. Yeah.
I think it is, yeah.
No.
But I didn't pull. I don't have this sheet up.
No, Brandon Webb was Diamondbacks. Who the hell did Ryan Webb play for?
Ryan Webb, the
Cubs, maybe?
378 games over 8 seasons for the Padres, Marlins, Orioles, Indians, Guardians, and Rays from 2009 to 2016. He finished 105 of those games, but somehow never recorded a save, nor did any of the other reliever. So number 4, Ryan Webb. Number 3, I'm going with Aroldis Chapman.
Cuban Missile?
Just an absolute gun. An absolute gun and a unit of a human being. Number 2, the name gets dropped in Moneyball, but you never see him. I'm going with Dennis Eckersley. Dennis Eckersley. Good setup man. And then number 1, he was a whatever. What else?
He's a Hall of Famer. He was a starter and a closer, like Smoltz.
Then I'm going to go with just the best setup man I've ever seen live. I have a shirt that has his name on it that was given out at Free T-Shirt Day. Any guesses? Nick, you're nodding your head?
Yeah, it's Darren O'Day.
It's Darren O'Day. We're going Darren O'Day, a true setup man. But yeah, that's my list. I think I have a pretty good one here.
Submariners there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of submariners there. I mean, effective relief pitchers.
Boy.
I love that.
Thank you.
Nice. Starting with number 5, I'm going with a guy that played for West Virginia that I actually ended up hitting against. He was the setup man for Kimbrel.
Yes, I knew he would be on your list.
2015, 2016. This is David Carpenter. If you've never heard the name, you probably haven't. He was in the show for a brief time.
He had several, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
That ain't a brief time, boy.
Well,
that's a career for most people.
Yeah, but I think what ended his career was when he came to our club baseball practice at West Virginia and said, "Hey, like, can I pitch to you guys?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, dude! Like, let's set up the L screen." I was like, "I want to see it, like, bring the heat." And I mean, he was throwing probably upper 80s, low 90s, and I will say, trying to hit an MLB pitcher, like, I fouled off the first pitch, like, straight back, and everyone was like, "How bad are you cheating?" And I was like, "Well, you got started early against this guy." I never missed a pitch. I could never barrel it, though. The late movement from MLB pitchers is unbelievable. He was throwing 4-seam fastballs, and this late, just like last 5 feet of just like darting in, just sliding in movement that just like I swung. I was like, that's hit right up the middle, and it just barrels your hands. It was like that would have snapped a wood bat. Like, is unreal, that late movement. But after that summer, he gets traded to the Yankees, and then essentially gets hit out of the league because MLB players don't miss those.
No.
And they're hitting absolute bombs off of him. But I love David. I will never forget David Carpenter coming to West Virginia and pitching against us. It was one of the coolest moments of my baseball career.
Solid.
Yeah. Number 4, the greatest closer of all time, Mariano Rivera. Coming out to Enter Sandman was always such a cool thing, even though he had no idea who Metallica was and said he would never have picked that song, being the good Christian that he is. But he's also the only unanimous player in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and goes to show you how unbelievable he was. He's the only person that you can say he's the greatest at this position.
Without any debate.
You can,
correct.
Yeah, you would have a debate at any other position, first base, center field, whatever it is. There would be some sort of debate. That's why no one's ever been unanimous. Mariano Rivera is the only one.
Yeah.
Number 3, a guy that you love, Nick, Jonathan Papelbon.
What a fucking douchebag.
Good one.
That doesn't even that needs to be more expletive-lated.
Oh, the reason why I have him on this list is not because of what he did with the Red Sox. It was him just blasting Bryce Harper after Harper didn't run out a pop fly.
Douchebag.
And him coming back to the dugout and Papelbon having words with him and then just slamming him into the back of the dugout.
Nice.
So Papelbon at number 3.
Pull.
Number 2, the guy with the most consecutive saves in history, Eric Gagne.
Yeah.
The goggles. I mean, it was must-see TV. When he was on that streak, it was awesome. And I think I remember the Barry Bonds Gagne at bat that ended with Bonds in a home run, of course. But it was such a cool thing. And then number 1, starter reliever, depending on what day it was, Tim Wakefield. The knuckleballer, the late, great Tim Wakefield. The easiest way to catch a knuckleball is to let it stop and pick it up, right? Mm-hmm. So it was just so much fun watching him pitch, just that ball darting any which way. You have no idea what's going on. Love Tim Wakefield.
Good list.
Yeah. So before I get to my list, Kamlo kind of hinted at this. For whatever reason, relief pitchers in baseball, in the annals of baseball, have phenomenal names. So I went ahead and before I get to my list, I'm going to highlight some of the best names. So you have, Al Albuquerque's on this list. I can't believe he pulled that. But you have, your your Goose Gossage, who I'll talk about here in a second, Raleigh Fingers, Tug McGraw, Houston Street, great names, right? But then you get into some phenomenal ones. Octavio Dotel, boy. Here's another one for you, boy. I know you remember this one. Ugath Urbina.
Yes.
What a U as his initials, amazing. Tippy Martinez, Paul Assenmacher. What a name there. There's a lot of relief pitchers who went by Dick. By the way, my two favorites that I found, Dick Drago and Dick Tidrow, I thought were the best one. Daryl Knowles. So like Daryl and Harold combined, Daryl Knowles. Couple good ones here. Grant Balfour as a pitcher, and Eric Plunk as a relief pitcher. Turk Wendell. There were a couple of Turks actually. Jabba Chamberlain, a ridiculous name. Brusdar Gratterall for another modern one. Jumbo Brown, fantastic. But my all-time favorite here, boy, this is like a David Letterman sentence when he does his top 10, but my Billy Koch is Andrew Chafin, so I'll scratch it with my Brad hand.
Jesus Christ.
Which I know you've heard of all three of those pitchers too, which makes it better.
A couple of those guys were really good.
A lot of them were really
Chafin, Brad Hand.
Yeah, a lot of them are really good pitchers. That's what makes it better. And we didn't even mention John Rocker, right?
He was real life Kenny Powers.
He was psychopath, and he ridiculous name too, right? Rocker, I hardly know her. Perfect for a nut job relief pitcher, right? But I'll start with my honorable mention was Goose Gossage, Richard Goose Gossage. He pitched the Hall of Famer. Yankees, Giants, Padres, I think is who he's most known for. But he was a fantastic pitcher, fantastic mustache, fantastic name. It's hard to go wrong with Goose there. Number 5, Sean Doolittle from UVA. He was actually not a pitcher at UVA. He was a first baseman. Ryan Zimmerman was the third baseman. He was the first baseman. Got into pro ball and just kind of like how Rivera took off, or like, oh, hey, throw this, keep doing it, or how Wakefield throw this knuckleball, right? All these things, someone was like, hey, why don't you throw this? And they realized that no one could hit his fastball. Whatever the ride is on his lefty fastball, he couldn't hit it. And he turned out to be a multiple-time All-Star, I believe. World Series champion, closer. At some point was setting up games, had the great goggles, the great beard. Love me some Sean Doolittle. Number 4, I have Darren O'Day, who Kamlo brought up earlier. He's just one of the best relief pitchers of our generation. Truly was. And the way he threw too, he was great at dominant against righties, but also could get lefties out a little bit. Like it wasn't like he was one dimensional too, which I kind of liked with him. But he was just always so clutch. Like holds, if you look at that, he was always up there in holds. He did such a great job. Number 3, Billy Wagner from?
I don't know where he's from.
Ferrum College, Division III Ferrum College. Billy Wagner, when he was in high school, was righty.
What?
He broke his right hand, started throwing lefty, and they realized it was better than his righty, so he kept doing it. And went to D3 Ferrum, right? Somehow made it to the show. He should be a Hall of Famer. He is one of the greatest closers of all time. If you look at his year-by-year numbers, never a bad year. I mean, hell, his last year when he pitched for the Braves might be the best year of his career, right? Kind of like Mussina, who ended on top, like he went out on his own accord. Billy Wagner should definitely be in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the best relief pitchers in the history of baseball. His lefty, coming from that side as a closer, and how consistent he was on multiple teams through like at least a decade and a half of Major League Baseball is not matched by very, very many people. Number 2, boy, I know you know this one, Pat Neshek. Love Pat Neshek. Twins, Rockies, Cardinals, made at least one All-Star team, might have made another one, but had a very funky old school delivery, really, like moving his, the glove and slinging the ball with the high socks. Like, I don't know if he had stirrups or he always had some like fancy stripes on his socks, but Pat Neshek was awesome. pitched at a very high level, very consistently in a lot of different places. Again, he pitched well in Colorado. It doesn't happen. People don't do that by accident. But I love Pat Neshek, always diving away or cutting into you was awesome. And number one, I have my Rivera shirt on. It has to be Mariano Rivera. He is by far the greatest to ever, toe the rubber as a closer. It's amazing how consistent he was as well. It's the amazing story. He started out as a starter, right? And I think Buck Showalter was telling the story. He was at training camp, and some of the older guys like Mattingly or someone else was there, like Joe Pepitone was there, and they're playing catch with Rivera, just playing catch. And they couldn't catch the ball because, like you said, boy, at the last 5 feet, the ball would just dart. And they're literally, these former all-star pros were missing the ball. And so they came to Buck and they were like, who is this kid? Get him.
Hey, George.
Oh, yeah. Hey, George. You don't forget the cotton jerseys. Get this kid on the mound. Like, who is this? And they started to look at it more, and they just realized his ball naturally just cut right at the end, and no one could hit it. It is arguably the most dominant pitch in the history of baseball. Again, he was so consistent. Such a great athlete, too. He looked the same from his first year till his last year. He stayed in such great shape. You ask some people, experts, to put their Mount Rushmore of Yankees, like their top four. There are a decent number of people that are going to put Rivera, and for real good reason, right? Yeah. It's hard to say that you could put, as much as I love Derek Jeter, you would, if you really go by it numbers wise and analytically and just break it down, it's like, man, you almost have to put Rivera over him and over, like Mickey Mantle at some point, right? Like it's amazing what he was able to do in the era he did it in.
Do you want his postseason stats?
Yes.
So Rivera was 8-1.
How many games?
96 appearances. He was 8-1 with an ERA of .70. 110 strikeouts and 42 saves.
That's
in 96
terrifying.
appearances.
.70. And what's amazing about that is, I think his best year just over the season was a 1.4 ERA. So literally that means he's stepping his game up that much more. To go from 1.4 to .7 is a huge jump, right? That's .7 earned runs over a 9-inning span. So that's pretty from his best.
Yeah, that's what makes him the best closer ever. It's not just the number of saves, because he has the most ever, but it's the postseason dominance of what he's able to do in the biggest stage at the biggest moments
against the best players too. Remember,
best players to just shut him down.
Yeah,
I mean that's incredible what his postseason numbers are. I don't think you'll ever see someone with the postseason numbers like that again.
No, we that was the golden era of closers. After him and Hoffman and Billy Wagner and Gagne and
K-Rod.
Brad Lidge and K-Rod and Joe Nathan.
Nathan, that's a good one.
Right, and I'm sure I'm missing a couple people. But after that, we have seen not a lot of people sustain consistent levels of dominance. You have Craig Kimbrell and Kenley Jansen, who amazingly are 4th and 5th all time in saves. But outside of them, who have had consistency issues, the both of them really have.
Yeah.
They have not been pure dominant their whole careers. A lot of their saves have definitely come because they've been on some really good teams. Right.
I think we need to show some, because we're doing a reliever favorites list. I think we do need to shout out Clase on the Cleveland Guardians, because I think his ERA is like .76 right now or something like that.
Yeah, something crazy.
So, yeah, he's the next great one. Hopefully, if he stays.
Because we thought Edwin Diaz was anointed that, and then he goes and hurts his knee, and all these guys get anointed this, right?
Mason Miller, he's a rook.
But it's so volatile, right? I mean, hell, Blake Trinan at some point was like the highest regarded.
Josh Hader.
Yeah, right. You have a lot of these guys, and Emmanuel Clase, I believe this year he'll wind up leading the American League in saves for 3 straight years, maybe 4. I think it's at least 3 straight years he's going to lead the league in saves, right? And that, like I said, I think it is worthy to shout him out, because he may be the one to take the reins as the premier closer, relief pitcher of this generation that other guys haven't really done in the last 10 years.
I'm sorry, his ERA is 0.65 right now.
That's well, your boy Zach Britton, who I'm surprised wasn't on this list, Comlo, had a year where it was I think it was 0.58 his ERA was in that 1 year.
That sinker, that like power sinker,
turbo sinker is what they call it.
Is that what they called it?
Yeah.
That was unhittable. I mean, at one point it was don't swing.
It's not going to be in the strike zone. Yeah. Anything else before we wrap this show up, gentlemen?
No, sir.
That was a good one.
Yeah. All right. So
good show.
Yeah, that's gonna go ahead and do it for us here at What Caught My Eye, or WCME Sports. For the boy Stephen Vesci and the man Stephen Comlo, I am your host, the coach Nick Vesci. As always, follow us on all of our socials at WCME Sports on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Our episodes drop every Wednesday at noon on Spotify and YouTube. Before we leave, we want to shout out to all of the people who've been supporting us and listening and talking to us, letting us know what they think. We really value that input. We look forward to engaging with more people as we keep getting this thing growing. But yes, never be afraid to reach out, say something, like something, comment. It helps us more than you actually realize.
100%.
But as always, before we leave, I want to leave you on this note. Don't forget the great James Earl Jones passed away this past week. So, if you have a chance, go watch Field of Dreams, because or Sandlot, because you will cry. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll hurl. But as always, be decent to each other. Have a good one. We'll see you next time. Take care, Guatemala.
And oh wow, this is taking a minute. I don't know why.